Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today's game will be played against Dorinthea. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and we compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our play in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. Today's video features my Switchblade list. If you would like to check that list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and that link is down in the video description as well. A Patreon subscription will get you Discord access, your name will be listed in every daily FaB gameplay video, and there are even more bonuses to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for anyone who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. I like the Dorinthea matchup. It can be difficult, it can vary based on our draws compared to their draws, but in my opinion, that's what makes it interesting. Any game where FaB really needs to block well to win is an interesting game to me because it's so different from what we usually do, and blocking well is very important in combating Dorinthea. We win the die roll and we are going to choose to go second. This lets us utilize our entire opening hand on blocks to deny Dorinthea her Dawnblade counters. We essentially get to start the game with tempo as opposed to the other way around, where it is much easier for Dorinthea to build the Dawnblade if she gets to block our opening attacks. If you check FaB meta stats, I think the win rate for the FaB Dorinthea matchup is plus or minus 20%. Based on winning the die roll. Either one of us really want to go second in this matchup, but because we win the die roll, we get to. Talking about our equipment, we are not going to change anything. I have found that the Kodachi momentum plan is better than Emberblade pouncing links into Dorinthea. We wear down her armor very quickly if she is blocking aggressively with it. And once her armor is gone, we start to take real cards from her hand if she wants to deny our Mask of Momentum triggers. It plays very much like Bravo. If we are getting real cards from her hand, then she has fewer reactions with which to push the Dawnblade over blocks, and that makes it much easier for us to reset the Dawnblade when necessary. Warrior does not deal arcane damage, so we don't need to worry about our Spell Void. Looking at the 60, we are going to cut double strikes in order to bring in Sink Below. And I do believe double strike is easily the worst card in our deck against Dorinthea. Blocking Dorinthea's attacks usually involves every card from our hand or no cards from our hand. If we are trying to reset the Dawnblade, it's usually going to take everything we have. So where playing against Bravo might take a card or two cards from our hand to block a crush effect, and double strike really shines as a way to threaten Mask of Momentum off of just two cards in hand. Against Dorinthea, it's mostly just a 0 for 2, and it's below rate, and we don't want to play it. So cutting double strike for Sink Below tends to be the correct call, and we do really want Sink Below against Dorinthea. A Sink Below in Arsenal is a great way to get around Iron Song Determination, given the Dawnblade dominate. It's also just a very efficient one-card block, which is really, really important when we are trying to reset the Dawnblade. And I've said reset the Dawnblade a lot because that is our game plan in this matchup. How we kill Dorinthea is either by racing or by resetting the Dawnblade and keeping the Dawnblade under control. Racing Dorinthea is certainly possible. It depends on the cards that we are drawing, and if we are consistently drawing hands that don't block well, then we're more incentivized to throw them at Dorinthea's face and try to kill her before the Dawnblade gets too big to block. But on average, if we're seeing our 3 blocks and our sink belows at appropriate times, we use those and armor to block Dorinthea's Dawnblade, keep it from hitting us, and keep it from generating and maintaining its +1 counters. Dorinthea beats us by growing the Dawnblade and putting good turns together using Glistening Steelblade or Steelblade Supremacy to give the Dawnblade extra damage, draw extra cards, give extra counters, and get to a game state where we cannot block and reset the Dawnblade. And if Dorinthea's weapon is doing 9 points of damage for 1 resource, that's really, really good. A special shout out to Warmonger's Diplomacy in this matchup. All of Dorinthea's powerful turns will start with a non-attack action. Ironsong Determination, Glistening Steelblade, Steelblade Supremacy, Spoils of War, and Warmonger's Diplomacy shuts down all of that. It is a great way to steal tempo back from Dorinthea, playing Warmonger's Diplomacy to limit Dorinthea's offensive options, then putting your entire hand and armor suite in front of a large Dawnblade on blocks is a great way to reset the game state and try to take tempo back. All of this is to say, certainly pitch Warmonger's Diplomacy or block with it if your hand is otherwise very good. But if you can afford to play Warmonger's Diplomacy, that is a priority in this matchup. Outside of that, our win condition is, of course, Art of War, trying to set up a big turn that goes over the top of Dorinthea's blocks and wearing down her armor so that we are getting our Mask of Momentum triggers and she cannot easily stop them. This matchup really is just about controlling the Dawnblade, be it resetting with blocks or stripping Dorinthea's hand so that she cannot afford to attack with and pump the Dawnblade. Let's get into the game itself and you can see exactly how that works in practice. Phoenix Flame goes to discard. We see that our opening hand only blocks 9. That isn't ideal. We would certainly like to be blocking more than that, but compared to something like 3/2 blocks in an Art of War, it's very good. The Dawnblade here for 3 will always get all of our cards on defense, unless we have an Art of War or something else that doesn't block. There is no reason to ever hold a card back on defense against the Dawnblade on turn 1. Dorinthea has lines that can get around this. A Twinning Blade here with a Glint the Quicksilver would give the Dawnblade go again and additional attack, and Dorinthea would get a card from Arsenal. She has the floating resource to attack with Dawnblade again. But outside of that, outside of these really wild Dorinthea high rolls, we just want to put all of our cards in front of the Dawnblade to prevent her from getting counters on turn 1. This eliminates the need for us to do really any math that we would need to do on a later turn to see how bad could this possibly be. Just put all of your cards in front of the Dawnblade and draw up at the end of Dorinthea's turn. This is why it is so good when we get to go second in this matchup, because we get to make plays like that. Looking at these 4 cards, we do have the Art of War, we have a blue to pay for it, and we even have another blue that we wouldn't mind banishing. With Dorinthea at 40 life and us having only 4 cards with no arsenal, I am more inclined to just stick the Art of War in arsenal at the end of the turn and play out these other 3 cards. The sequencing there is pretty simple. Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame, Kodachi, Blaze Headlong. We threaten a good 10 points of damage. We aren't expecting to trigger Mask of Momentum as Dorinthea has plenty of armor to block the Phoenix Flame. She may even be inclined to block the Blaze Headlong as well. But we do set our Art of War in arsenal Not every Dorinthea list is playing Command and Conquer, and the ones that are not necessarily playing 3 copies. So I feel okay having this Art of War in Arsenal. I feel like it is not likely to get blown up, and I am not likely to get punished for not using it with a pretty good hand. Dorinthea apparently having a bit of a clunker with the Iron Song response being used on defense to overblock even. Here, Warrior's Valor and the Dawnblade, we don't feel the need to block this. We have another blue in hand. It is a Warmonger's Diplomacy, which would be fine to play on our turn, but with a Salt the Wound and a Command and Conquer, we would either have to use our Snapdragon to do so or not play a Command and Conquer. What I'm looking more at doing is playing the Art of War, pitching Warmonger's Diplomacy, and banishing Salt the Wound. I keep my 2 floating resources. I have a blue in hand, just in case I need to pay for something other than CNC. Let's just take this 6. Warrior's Valor will give the Dawnblade go again, and Dorinthea can get her counter. We see that Dorinthea did have just a bit of an awkward hand, 3 reds and a yellow, so it makes sense why she would block with the response. She's putting the 2 power cards back into her deck. For our turn, we are going to start with that Art of War. There is a question here between banishing CNC or Salt the Wound. It really is a judgment call here. I am more a fan of presenting the CNC, presenting some sort of disruption at Dorinthea rather than just raw damage, as disruption is going to help us better control the Dawnblade. That said, we draw into a couple more blues, which is a little unfortunate. We can just play out this hand. Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Brand with Cinderclaw, Phoenix Flame, CNC. As far as sequencing goes, we can attack with Kodachi, Brand for 3, then attack with Brand for 3, spend 1 resource to pick up the Phoenix Flame, and throw the Command and Conquer. Probably not going to trigger Mask of Momentum this turn. Dorinthea still has 4 cards in hand to block with and all of her armor available, but we are trying to chew through that armor as best we can, as quickly as we can. Brand for 3 here is better than Brand for 2, as we are going to either get a card from Dory's hand or multiple pieces of armor. We are luckily going to get to threaten another Mask of Momentum trigger. Of course, the Mask of Momentum trigger comes on the CNC, which Dorinthea is already inclined to block. But we are still going to get at least 1 card from Dory's hand, and we're threatening quite a bit of damage. It is unfortunate that Dory has the Skull Cap and is lower on life. If this was a Crown of Providence, Dory would be able to make the same block, but the Skull Cap, of course, sticks around and is still worth 1 point of block. Dory here playing Spoils of War with a blue. Our hand is full of 2 blocks, so as much as I don't want to take this damage and let Dory get another counter on the Dawnblade, this hand is not good for blocking. Dory has 1 resource floating. We need to think about the worst possible scenario for blocking this, which is that Dory has an Iron Song response in arsenal and a
Singing Steel Blade
in hand that finds Iron Song response, which means that this Dawnblade is essentially worth a maximum of 13 damage. We cannot block 13 damage without giving our entire hand and all of our armor, so we just aren't going to try. This is a situation where we would be happy to reset the Dawnblade if we could, but because we can't, we are just going to race. We will go to 21. The Dawnblade picks up another counter. Let's think about how we're going to sequence this hand. Because Dory still has armor block on on the Brave Forge Bracers and even the Courage of Bladehold if she needed it. We are not going to open with Snatch. We would like to end our turn with Snatch, which means that we need to look at the other cards in our hand to see how to sequence this outside of Snatch. Our brand pitches for Kodachi Mounting Anger, and we have a Ronin Renegade. That is only 2 Draconic links, so we cannot pick up a Phoenix Flame. Outside of Snatch, we get 4 links this turn, so we're going to open with Mounting Anger, assume that Mounting Anger gets blocked, then attack with Kodachi Ronin Renegade. That likely gets blocked as well, and finally we end our turn with Snatch. Hopefully prompting 3 blocks out of Dori this turn. She does not have enough armor to cover all of that up, especially considering that she will be higher on life than we are. So the Skull Cap doesn't have block value at this point. After Dori blocks the Ronin Renegade, it's entirely possible that she has a Sink Below in hand. But if she doesn't, she's either giving us 2 cards to block the Snatch or letting the Snatch connect. And she does let it connect. We are going to Arsenal this Warmongers and just save it. We draw into a very clunky hand, even outside of blocking considerations. If Dori had no hand here and we got to throw these 4 cards, it would be very hard to use them well. So we can use this hand to play defense. We're still looking at the worst case scenario for what Dori could have, and in this case, with 2 resources floating, it is Iron Song, Response, and Rout. If it is Iron Song, Response, and Rout, this Dawnblade is worth 11 points of damage if we block with 4 cards, and Rout puts one of them back into our hand. The Dawnblade gets pushed over the top and does keep the counters. However, it would not have go again, and Dori does not have resources to pay for another Dawnblade attack unless she wanted to use her bolters and her courage. So blocking this for 12, I think sounds pretty good. Outside of Rout, there is nothing Dori could have that gets 5 over the top of 12. So we'll put our entire hand in front of this on defense, except that we could get blown out by Rout. The way to play around Rout would be to use our Flamescale Furnace to take this up to 14. If we do get routed and any of these cards gets put back into our hand, then we are still blocking for 11, but I don't feel the need to really go all in. I think that I am fine to accept that a Rout just gets me, and we see that Dori does not have the Rout. So we do reset the Dawnblade, and now we have a decision as far as whether we want to play this Warmonger's Diplomacy or pass. I'll think about it for a second, but I do think that playing the Warmongers here is better than not. Even with the Dawnblade reset, Dori has 5 cards in her hand and Arsenal, and we cannot threaten her off of that. So let's just make sure that she can't keep tempo. We're going to severely diminish the power of her turn and see what we can do with our hand. Our hand is very strong. Salt to Wound here pays for Mounting Anger and a Kodachi, and we have another Snatch, and Dori doesn't have much left in the way of armor. So I'm fine to just take this damage, and this is in fact going to make her Skull Cap even less likely to have block value. Dori putting us down to 12 puts us into an interesting spot where we can sequence our Mask trigger before or after our Snatch. If we throw Snatch first, we are probably getting multiple cards from Dori's hand unless she has a Sink Below or wants to block with Courage of Bladehold. I am fine with doing that. After we throw the Snatch and snap it, we can throw Kodachi, Mounting Anger, Blaze Headlong. The alternative would be Kodachi mounting Anger Blaze headlong first, then throw the snatch, but I do want to see how Dori addresses this. She gives us the courage on defense, which lets her keep cards in hand, but courage does have temper, so it is now off the board. That is effectively worth at least one card from Dori's hand, so I'm fine to get the courage here. The fact that Dori did not sink the snatch makes me feel confident that she does not have a defense reaction in hand or arsenal. And after giving us 2 cards to stop the mounting anger, we are just going to arsenal the Blaze headlong. Dawnblade here coming for just 3. There are no resources floating. This card has been in Dori's arsenal forever, likely because we have not given her the opportunity to get value from it. That makes me very confident that it is Iron Song Response. And if it is Iron Song Response, then now is a great time to reset the Dawnblade. Let's put our Furnace and our Shuko in front of the Dawnblade. Iron Song Response only gets value if we block from hand, so we don't need to. We can keep our Soul Bead Strike rather than cover the response damage and present an extra 2 damage and 2 more chain links on our turn. We are still behind Dori on life, so Dori has no armor at this point. As far as sequencing goes, we want to make this as awkward as possible for Dori. We will start with Brand, then Kodachi, then Phoenix Flame. Because Dori has no block value, she needs to give us a whole card from hand to prevent 1 point of damage, or she blocks the Brand, then we attack with Kodachi, Phoenix Flame. Choosing instead to block with Brand, I think this is fine. We still throw Kodachi, Phoenix Flame, and we are taking cards out of Dori's hand early. The fact that she blocked the first Brand, but not the second, is very good for us, as she does block the Phoenix Flame, but we get to threaten another Mask of Momentum trigger. We open with Ronin Renegade, see if Dori wants to block this. She does with a Sink Blow, so we are still going to sit on this Blaze headlong. Let's attack with the Kodachi, push another 1 point of damage, and just pass. We keep a 5-card hand going into our next turn. Unfortunately, this 5-card hand is not the business. We do not have a red with natural Go Again, and we do not have an easy way to turn on our Flamescale Furnace. So what we will likely want to do with this hand is nothing, which is interesting, but here's the thing. If we are putting our Dori on having an Iron Song Response in Arsenal, we don't want to block this Dawnblade. This hand is very clunky, and normally we would be happy to block with it, but what I want to do here is Brand with Cinderclaw, then pitch our 2 reds for Command and Conquer. And if we block this Dawnblade, we give Dori a chance to clear Iron Song Response out of her arsenal, which doesn't let us destroy it. So what we should do here is just pass and take 3. And what I do at the time of recording is forget that I am putting Dori on having Iron Song Response, which gives her an opportunity to play it. She pushes 3 points of damage anyway, and we just don't have a great way to utilize our Command and Conquer. We'll throw it here anyway. We'll attack with a Kodachi, then a CNC, and Command and Conquer still represents almost half of Dori's remaining life total. Dori does respect it by giving us 2 cards from hand, but it could have been so much better. We could have pushed an extra point of damage. Here, with the Dawnblade coming in for 4, we can look at our hand and see that we have our Kodachi, Bittering Thorns, Blaze Headlong, Lava Burst, a very strong turn. The question is, do we want to sink this Dawnblade? I am not inclined to do so. If we block the Dawnblade with our Sink Below from hand, we are now activating Dori's reprise effects. And if she uses a glint on this Dawnblade, that draws her a card. I would rather save the Sink Below. or even just stick it in arsenal. Instead choosing to use it, I can't speak to what I am putting Dori on here. Maybe I just didn't want to take 4 points of damage. We are still going to have a very strong turn. Dori does not have armor with block value at the moment, so we are going to be threatening a Mask of Momentum trigger. The Bittering Thorns here is good sequencing. If this Thorns get blocked, we get to follow up with Kodachi, Blaze Headlong, Lava Burst. Dori spends 2 cards to block our Bittering Thorns, which is great value for us and poor damage for her. Poor value, excuse me. She doesn't even gain the life from Respite. And Blaze Headlong here is still not an easy block from her. Dori falls below us on life, so her Skullcap does have block value at this point, but apparently she does not have a way to utilize that. We draw an Art of War for the arsenal. We have a very good hand to utilize it, and we are now presented with the opportunity to block or die. The worst thing that Dori can have in this hand really depends on how we react to the Dawnblade. If we don't block this and Dori has 2 1-cost +3 reactions, we lose the game. So we do need to block with something. But because of Dori's reprise effects activating if we block from hand, we don't want to block from hand if we can avoid it. The best block here is to block with our remaining armor. We cover the 3 from Dawnblade, so Dawnblade itself, without any sort of power enhancement, does not get the additional attack this turn. Dori does not get any reprise effects because we are not blocking from hand. And even in the worst case situation, which these are 2 punctures, we only take 8 and go to 1. So if we block the Dawnblade with our 3 block equipment, I don't believe there is a way for us to lose in the current board state. Then we keep our 4-card hand with an Art of War in arsenal and just win the game. As far as sequencing goes, I'm going to lead with 2 Kodachis. The first Kodachi is very likely to connect. The second Kodachi is not. Dori blocking the first Kodachi. Let's see if she chooses to block the second one. At that point, we are just throwing 3 go again, 3 go again, 3 go again, and the first one of these to get blocked by a 3 block gets the Art of War. Dori cannot play around Art of War here without a Sink Below in hand, and if she chooses to Sink Below this or Oasis Respite, she's giving us a lot of cards to prevent that damage, and then we kill her with what's left in our hand. And we see that Dori does not have the ability to stop that 1 point of damage and loses the game. Overall, I think this was a well-played game from me. It was very neck and neck for a while, and then it wasn't. And that was off the back of some key blocks from me, followed by Warmonger's Diplomacy, blocking the Dawnblade for 12, correctly anticipating that Dori could not easily get over the 12, and putting her on not having the route, I believe won that game. We certainly drew well, we had good turn cycles, we misplayed around reprise a bit, taking an extra 3 points of damage from blocking with our Lava Burst rather than just taking 3 from the Dawnblade itself. But overall, doing the math to see what is the worst possible thing that Dori could have in her hand, and blocking or not blocking appropriately is how you win this game. Sometimes you do lose. Sometimes they play Glistening Steelblade, Steelblade Supremacy. Your hand is entirely 2 blocks. You can't deal with what they are doing, and you lose. Sometimes you mispredict what they could have in hand. Sometimes they are running a trick that you were not expecting them to have. But for the most part, Dorinthea is a math problem. And as long as you can correctly, or mostly correctly, math out what they could have in hand and arsenal, and you are able to present the appropriate defense, you'll win this game every time. I do hope you enjoyed this game and I hope you found it helpful. If so, please jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback, and I will see you back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.